What is up, YouTube? It is Onion Bomb here. Welcome back to another Honkai Impact 3rd reaction video. Today, we are still back on the playlist of Lord animation and everything, and we've hit a pretty interesting video, but a decently long one as well. This one is 30 minutes, and it is the entire history of the Honkai universe. So I'm interested in this one. However, like I kind of mentioned this last time, there are some pretty long ones coming up that are gonna be interesting, but I'm not sure how long the video. I don't know if we're gonna get like a longer video or maybe a slightly shorter one, and not too many different videos within a reaction. This one's only gonna be like 2 or 3 videos because yeah, this one's 30, the next one's 17, and then the next one is 30 as well. I think we're gonna do all 3 of those probably max. But yeah, let's get to it. This is Homu Labs again. Big shout out once again to Homu Labs. And this is the entire history of the Honkai universe.
This video contains spoilers for the entire Honkai series, plus Genshin.
So I thought my audio was tweaking, but I don't think it's. Might have got muted for copyright, maybe. Sometimes I have to do on some of these. Yeah.
对，所以我觉得当时我们做原神的时候，因为原神是一个非常非常年轻的团队，大家其实没有太多经验，但是充满着勇气和热爱，所以我们就一直开始做了。分外不倒，陪你到老。
Yeah. The history of the Honkai.
The Honkai universe is a vast interconnected cosmological structure in which all the Hoyoverse games take place. In today's video, we will focus on its history and evolution with the addition of each new game. And yes, I know Genshin is not technically part of the Honkai series, but it is part of the Honkai universe. So yeah, I wanted to address that before the actually guys appear in the comments. This video is part of a series that explores different facets of the Honkai universe. If you want to watch the other videos in the series, like this one where I talk about how the inconsistent use of the terminology makes the cosmology a lot more complicated to understand than necessary, I'll leave a link to a
that was
playlist
in the playlist
description. This video
earlier.
series was made possible with the help of the Hoyostens community, so a big shout out to them for all the help.
The early days.
First, let's take a look at some of the early works that laid down the foundation of the Honkai universe. Kai Aoyu, Liu Wei, and Yuhao Luo, the 3 founders of MiHoYo, were working together on games as university students even before creating the company. Back in 2010, they developed an isometric tile-based flash game called The Legend of Saha. This game would go on to be the prototype for many ideas they use in the future games, mainly Genshin Impact. The game's protagonist was called Misei Nanatsuki, and she was the prototype for Kiana and March 7. Some of the characters in her name refer to an archaic way to say March, and Tsuki literally means moon. She was supposed to be the protagonist of Fly Me to the Moon, the first game released by MiHoYo, but she was replaced by Kiana later on. The action of the game takes place in the 2 nations of Neylan and Sumeru. The protagonist lost her memories and is journeying to recuperate them and get revenge on the gods of that world, who are real assholes by the way. Kai Aoyu, the developer of the project and the producer of Genshin Impact, took inspiration from his old game when crafting the world of Teyvat. There's even an NPC in Inazuma named after the protagonist of the game called Yayoi Nanatsuki. Later, in 2011, the 3 university students founded MiHoYo and released their first game as an independent developer, Fly Me to the Moon. The game was a puzzle game about Kiana Kaslana, a magical girl that wanted to well, Fly to the Moon, which, as the developers admitted, served as a basis for the story of Honkai Impact 3 Part 1. Kiana would then go on to be the protagonist of 3 out of the 4 existing Honkai games. Next year, in 2012, MiHoYo would release the first game in the Honkai series called Honkaiimpact, localized as Zombie Gal Kawaii in the West. Can you tell that they were hardcore otaku? The game was a side-scroll shooter based on the popular anime and manga series High School of the Dead. Kiana returns as the protagonist, but this time, instead of flying to the moon, she kills zombies with a gun, which kinda became her main weapon throughout the rest of the series. Unfortunately, due to the download-based charging monetization of the game, it wasn't very successful and almost led the company to bankruptcy. In a last attempt to save MiHoYo, the developers decided to rework the game and re-release it with the title Honkaiimpact 2, known as Guns Girls Z in the West, but this time, instead of charging per download, they released it as a live service gacha game, decision that will change the entire company forever and end up draining our wallets in the future. Due to this decision, they needed to create more characters for the players to pull, so GGZ saw the introduction of many characters that would keep appearing throughout the series, like Raiden Mei, Bronya Zaichik, Murata Himeko, Teresa Apocalypse, and Yae Sakura. While the gameplay between the first two Honkai games was pretty much the same, GGZ would become MiHoYo's first ongoing narrative experience that laid the foundation for the Honkai universe. The game would introduce many important concepts for the series, such as the Honkai, Hershers, Stigmata, and many more. In an interview from 2021 during the CDG lecture, Kai Aoyu admitted that they came up with the idea of building a shared cosmology for their stories back in 2014 while working on GGZ. They called that idea the Honkai universe, and it would serve as a long-term goal for the company to build an immersive metaverse.
Interesting.
The
So that zombie game, I remember hearing about it in other videos. I went over this, but that was like that. I didn't really had like, yeah, all almost all the characters, or maybe like the big three. You know, I know I had Kiana, and I had Mei and Bronya as well, and Himiko, and I even introduced like Hershers and all that. They had stuff from like Honkai and really birthed. Really that drops. Really birthed what really birthed like paved the way to what Honkaiimpact 3 was today. I was finding my words perfectly until I dropped that can.
To create the foundation for the Honkai universe was GGZ's lead writer at that time, Lingyin Yang. She was responsible for the first event where characters from a parallel world are introduced into the Honkai series. The event was called Otherworld and told the story of Kiana Kaslana meeting a version of herself from a different world called Kevin Kaslana. This was Kevin's introduction into the series and served as a leeway for the concept of character variant that we see throughout the games today. While the event presented the whole encounter as a dream, it was later rewritten as a light novel, solidifying that it was real and Kevin was indeed another Kiana from a different world. Here's a fun fact. The event also introduced the first ever death of a playable character by having Kevin kill Bronya. During the event, Kevin offered the first explanation of how the Honkai universe works at a cosmological level. Kevin confirmed that MiHoYo was using the original interpretation of the many worlds theory and offered the earliest explanation of what would later be called the Imaginary Tree. Later in the year, MiHoYo released a new manga series called 1.5 Vita, also known as Honkai 3. The manga series used some of the GGZ manga as part of its story, but deviated from the stories told in GGZ. Honkai 3 was the foundation of what would later become Honkaiimpact 3 and includes manga such as Escape from Nagazora, Sakura Remembrance, and The Mystery of Stigmata. In one of the author notes from the Sakura Remembrance arc, MiHoYo uses the word line, which is also used by Kevin in the Otherworld World event to refer to the world of GGZ, implying that GGZ and Honkai Third are parallel world lines to each other. Later, in the second eruption author notes, they use the same word to refer to the world of Honkaiimpact Third.
I forget, is that Guns Girl
2016
online? Is that still a thing? Or is like that game like shut down?
would mark the release of the third game in the Honkai series, Honkaiimpact Third. The game would continue the story of Kiana, Mei and Bronya from the Honkai Third manga series and present a diverging path from GGZ by taking place in a parallel world. Not only that, but the gameplay was vastly different from the previous Honkai games, being a combat-oriented action RPG. Honkaiimpact Third was also the first fully 3D game made by MiHoYo. Not long after that, the Azure Waters manga presented us with the backstories of Bronya Zaichik and Cele Volerei. While the manga was created for Honkaiimpact Third, Ling Yi would later make a post in which she recontextualized the manga for GGZ, making it canon for both games. It's important to note that at this point, Ling Yi was still involved in the Honkaiimpact Third story. She was responsible for the first series of colored manga such as Azure Waters, AE Invasion, Gratitude Arc, and Moon Shadow. Basically, she was behind most of the horny stuff that we see in the early story, and she also pioneered popular ships like Kiame and Bronzele. After that, a new team was formed to continue the story of Honkaiimpact Third, and Ling Yi would remain as the head writer for GGZ until this year. She recently announced that she won't be involved with the story of GGZ after the ending of the Reborn storyline, and as far as we know, she has no part in the new story arc of GGZ.
Interesting.
2017 brought the ending of GGZ's first major storyline, Retrospective, or Retro for short, commemorated with an animated short featuring Kiana destroying the Earth. The animation became a cult classic in the global Honkai audience, with many people falsely believing that that was the ending of GGZ, when it was just the end of the first part of the story. Soon after, GGZ started a new storyline called Reborn. The ending of Retro revealed that the world of GGZ was locked in a samsara that kept resetting the world if humanity lost to Honkai. This concept would later return during the Moon arc in Honkaiimpact Third, when we found out that the world of Honkaiimpact Third is stuck in a 50,000 years repeating cycle, and it would also appear in Genshin Impact during the Sumeru arc and quest, but on a much smaller scale. And just like the Hoyoverse games, you are also stuck in a samsara of me telling you to subscribe every video. Seriously though, this video series took me literal months to produce, so if you like to support the channel by subscribing and giving this video a thumbs up, I would really appreciate it. Thanks. During the same year, the Honkaiimpact Third team released the Anti-Entropy visual novel. This novel introduced the alternate version of real-life scientists, and by alternate I mean that they took a page out of Fate's book and turned them into anime girls. Which is, you know, one way to make science interesting, I guess.
Cause why
The
not?
visual novel gave us the confirmation that the Honkai universe adheres to the classic string theory from physics, more exactly the M theory introduced by Edward Witten. The universe is revealed to be an 11-dimensional structure composed of multiple brains, which in simple terms are string-like structures that exist in higher dimensions. The visual novel also confirmed the existence of higher dimensional observers that are able to grant power to the people. In this case, with the help of such a being, Thomas Nancy Edison sacrificed all her possible futures and collapsed them into herself to obtain great power. Lastly, 2017 marked the beginning of the development of a new title called Honkai 4. The game would later be known as Genshin Impact, and yes, Genshin was initially supposed to be a sequel to Honkaiimpact Third, a fact that is pretty obvious if you take a look at the alpha version of the game and some of the very early beta versions. When MiHoYo applied for the stock market, they were rejected because they only had Honkai as their only major IP at that time. So, to attract new investors, they removed the word Honkai from the title of the game. This would later prove meaningless since they ended up withdrawing their application for the stock market anyway.
Interesting.
Since the Honkaiimpact 3rd writing team didn't want to make limited time content that would affect the main story, they introduced a new storyline that used the pre-established cosmology to tell a separate story through events and would not interfere with the main plot. The first event in this new storyline was called Sanguine Nights, and it followed the adventures of the Faceless Captain, a mysterious character based on the Captain persona, which is the player's avatar in the game. The storyline was dubbed as Captain's Bizarre Adventure, and similarly to the Otherworld event in GGZ, introduced the concept of similar looking characters from parallel worlds. The characters would look and sometimes even have the same names as the characters from the main story, but they were completely different people. The Captain verse would continue to tell its story through events for many years along with the main story of the game. Another important event in 2018 was the release of the second Eruption manga. This manga would become the most important external material for Honkaiimpact 3rd, fleshing out the world building and the cosmology of the game. It told the story of a Honkai disaster caused by the Herrscher of the Void in the year 2000 and focused on characters like Siegfried Kaslana, Cecilia Shariak, Welt Yang, Sirin, and Ado Apocalypse. This manga would expand on information about the Honkai and Herrschers and introduce important concepts such as imaginary space. Second Eruption also revealed that Honkai had a Gestalt, which is referred as the Wheel of the Honkai in the game. The Durandal visual novel was released in the same year, introducing another major cosmological structure, the Sea of Quanta. The visual novel told the story of Bianca Tagina and Rita Roswaise as they traveled to a bubble world in the Sea of Quanta. Ado described the Sea of Quanta as a chaotic space between dimensional manifolds that was parallel to the real world. The Sea of Quanta houses the so-called bubble worlds, unstable worlds that would inevitably dissolve and become data. The visual novel confirmed that the bubble worlds, just like the regular worlds, can house different versions of existing people, but character variants work a bit differently here. While until that point we thought that character variants could exist only as parallel versions of the same people in different worlds, in the Sea of Quanta they can exist as reflections based on a blueprint of data. For example, in the visual novel we encounter Anna Charles Darwin, the daughter of the Charles Darwin, whose counterpart in reality died as a child, but the Sea of Quanta used her data to create an alternate version of her in this bubble universe where she became an adult. These reflections of real people are called Star Whisperers. And finally, in 2018, Genshin released its first manga chapter. The manga introduced the character of Venti, who looked strangely similar to a character from Honkaiimpact 3rd called Wendy. 1 year later, GGZ would also introduce Wendy as a character and base her on Venti's Archon outfit from the Genshin manga, further straightening the idea that all these games take place in a single cosmology. The manga also mentions the name Murata in association with the Pyro Archon, revealing that there's an entire group of red-haired people called the Children of Murata. Who else is a red-haired lady associated with fire that is called Murata?
2019, 2020.
In 2019, Honkaiimpact 3rd finally introduces the concept of the Sea of Quanta in the game's story, expanding on the information from the Durandal visual novel. This period also saw the release of the second key manga. The manga was the first instance in the series where characters mention the imaginary tree visualization scheme. We see the introduction of Sue in the story, who uses a bubble world called the Seed of Sumeru to observe other nearby worlds and look for a way to defeat the Honkai. Sue refers to the civilizations in the other worlds as leaves. Throughout the series, you will notice that multiple characters have different interpretations of the concept of leaf/branch, depending on how they choose to look at it. Sue states that the civilizations that fail to defeat the Honkai will eventually fall into the Sea of Quanta, existing only in bubble worlds. This is the case with the civilization on Mars, which we will explore in part 2 of Honkaiimpact 3rd. In 2020, Chapter 17 of Honkaiimpact 3rd marks the first mention of the imaginary tree inside the game. After studying the notes of the previous era, Arrow describes the imaginary tree and the Sea of Quanta as two forces in conflict with one another. He associates the Honkai with a mechanism of the tree that tests the civilizations on it. The civilizations that pass the test will be allowed to continue existing on the tree, and the ones that fail will sink into the sea. While Arrow's explanation is not exactly correct, he lays down the foundation for what would later become the most accepted understanding of the cosmology. Just like Sue, Arrow compares each branch to a form of civilized existence and calls each leaf a moment in time left by said civilization. During the same chapter, Arrow uses the second divine key to look at other worlds in the universe. In one of the worlds, we see Fallen Rosemary, an alternate version of Rita, part of the Captainverse storyline. This confirmed that Captainverse was indeed happening in the same cosmology as the main game. The second world would show an image of Dvalin, the winged dragon from Teyvat. A few months later, Genshin was released in September. The game tells the story of two twins traveling through different worlds. Due to certain circumstances, they end up stranded on Teyvat, a mysterious world that hides many secrets. While it was confirmed that Teyvat is part of the Honkai universe, its exact placement in the cosmology is still unknown. 2020 would end with another important event, the
like I've mentioned, I played just a very little bit of Genshin Impact before. And there's a video on my channel somewhere, and I uploaded like probably a year ago at this point of my first time playing Genshin Impact. But I mentioned before, I'd be down to like, maybe look into more of the Honkai games, like, cause some of these, do talk about, like Honkai Star Rail, like Genshin, GGZ in this one even, and like, if they have any sort of like, especially animation videos, if they have any, I'd be down to look into them as well. So far I've only really dived any sort of deeply into Honkaiimpact 3rd, but I've seen a few things about the other ones, and they all do look pretty interesting, especially they're like similar cosmology, so it's like similar characters and if not the same, not like the same. So I explained it, but yeah, just want to make a new to that.
Release of the Alien Space manga. The manga told the story
Alien
of the
Space
events
manga.
happening after a post-Honkai Odyssey, an open-world game mode inside Honkaiimpact 3rd that happens 8 years in the future. A Shixel squad formed by Adam, Carol Peppers, and Raiden May have to deal with the invasion of an alien civilization called the Sky People. The game mode introduced the mechanic of jumping and aerial combat to the game, providing a very different experience from the main game. The Alien Space manga told the story of Welt Yang and Void Archives
There was no
after
jumping
the invasion of the Sky People is dealt with.
before
the
that?
manga also serves as a prequel for Honkai Star Rail, teasing Welt's journey through the universe and connecting Honkai Star Rail to Honkaiimpact 3rd. 2021 introduced the crossover between Honkaiimpact 3rd and Genshin Impact. This event had Fischl from Genshin brought over as a permanent playable character in Honkaiimpact 3rd. Kaching was also part of the event as a limited time unit. Because the story implications of the two games overlapping would be major, Hoyoverse opted for this event to be part of a series of events dubbed by fans as the Idolverse. The Idolverse events are lighthearted and comical in nature, without any cosmological implications for the most part. Just the characters doing silly, fun stuff. In this case, the story of the crossover happened in a parallel world where Welt and Arrow came up with different game ideas for a collab between Shixel and AE. Funnily enough, the event portrayed how the two teams had very different visions and couldn't collaborate with each other, making me wonder if something similar may have happened in real life. GGZ and Honkaiimpact 3rd also collaborated in the past, with many characters from Honkaiimpact 3rd being brought over to GGZ. The last time, Alicia and Pardo were added as playable
So,
characters.
it's going
During
at
the
this
Honkai
point,
Impact
so
3rd
I
Starfire
guess it was...
Sonorat concert at the end of 2021, Hoyoverse revealed a new game in the Honkai series, officially announcing Honkai Star Rail and releasing an animated concept trailer called Reborn 2. The animated short is on the official Honkai Impact 3rd YouTube channel, and it's meant to be a look at a very early idea for Star Rail. It featured characters like Welt, Carol, and what people assume to be an early design for March 7th. During the same concert, they also announced the release of the second part of a post-Honkai Odyssey. APH02 would continue the story left in part 1 and introduce a new team formed by Bronya Zajcik, Timido Cute, and Lyle Kolodi. The story of APH02 ended on a massive cliffhanger, and part 3 is expected to be released sometime in the future, dealing with the time gap between the game mode and the Alien Space manga. The beginning of 2022 marked the end of Ado's journey in Honkai Impact 3rd. Ado's story arc features a character directly manipulating the basic rules that make up the cosmology and creating an entirely new world. During this arc, characters reaffirm Kevin's explanation of parallel worlds from GGZ by associating the universe with a game server where different choices made by the characters can split reality into multiple worlds with different outcomes. The concept of imaginary renormalization, a technique that allows to swap the properties of finite and infinity, was also introduced in this story arc. This technique was the key that allowed Ado to manipulate the wedge of the world and create a parallel world where Callan never died 500 years ago. 2023 is arguably the busiest year in the history of the Honkai series. At the beginning of the year, Honkai Impact 3rd concluded the first part of the main story, the Moon's origin and finality. The finale introduced the concept of ideas, embodiments of human narratives that can exist independently of humans. Ideas were a new species created through Project Stigma as an extension of humanity meant to coexist with the Honkai. The concept of time crystal was also introduced as a consequence of Project Stigma altering the space. Time crystals are a principle where time can be perceived in a constant loop. This event gave birth to an entity called I Lambda who could dream about the future. While moving through the Sea of Quanta, Kiana saw a projection of Bronny, an alternate version of Bronya from the Captain verse, reconfirming again the connection between the Captain verse and the main story. But the biggest reveal by far was the fact that the Honkai phenomena on Earth turned out to be orchestrated by a higher dimensional entity called the Cocoon of Finality. The Cocoon is a merged existence of multiple alien civilizations that propagate by assimilating other worlds into themselves through the Samsara process. The finale of part 1 also cemented the player as a higher dimensional entity in the Honkai universe similar to the Cocoon of Finality. I will not go into details on this because it's a very complicated concept to explain, but I have a different video about it where I go into more detail. So if you want to see that, I'll link it in the description. All you need to know is that yes, we as players exist in the Honkai universe and even have the power to intervene in the stories of this game. Alongside part 1 of the main story, 2023 also marks the ending of the Captainverse storyline in version 7.0, which is not released yet as of posting this video. After 5 years, the Captainverse storyline finally came to a conclusion in version 6.9.
Nice.
And will feature an epilogue event in version 7.0. It's important to mention that there are still some unresolved plot points in the Captain verse, but the characters achieved their
7.0 and 6.9? 6, 7? I'm sorry. Oh, I really want to pause, but I wanted to see how long ago. So this was uploaded 2 years ago. Wow, 2 years ago exactly yesterday. Other than that, I would have said 1 year. October 25th. So I'm recording this on the 22nd.
main goal. As of now, it's still unclear if we'll have new Captain-verse events in the future, or if we'll ever see the characters again. I certainly hope so, since I got pretty attached to them. Soon after the end of Honkai Impact 3 Part 1, GGZ also concluded the Reborn storyline, which started in 2017. The finale of Reborn confirmed the existence of a place called the Soul World, where the souls of the dead end up going. It also suggested that time is retroactive in nature, with the future defining the present and not the other way around. Terminus. And, just like the Cocoon of Finality from Honkai Impact 3, the Honkai phenomena in GGZ was controlled by a higher dimensional entity created by the merging of multiple alien civilizations called the Wheel of the Commander. Lastly, 2023 saw the release of the fourth game in the Honkai series, Honkai Star Rail. Unlike the previous entries in the series that focused on a single world, Star Rail decided to expand and focused on traveling between multiple worlds. The game tells the story of the Astral Express crew, a group of people that travel using a space train imbued with the powers of the Trailblazed Eon. The MC of the game is a bat-wielding maniac who has a mysterious power inside them called a Stellaron. Star Rail greatly expanded the cosmology of the Honkai universe and introduced the concept of eons, higher dimensional beings that exist throughout the universe. Eons are limited by their paths, philosophical concepts born as congregations of imaginary energy. Mortals can also access these paths and get powers from them. Xandar 1 Kuwabara, the first member of the Genius Society, introduced a brand new interpretation of the imaginary tree visualization scheme. While very similar to Otto, Xandar's interpretation chooses to look at the tree not only from the angle of time, but also from the angle of space. Xandar keeps the view that each branch is a form of civilized existence, with each leaf being a moment in time for said civilization, but he also looks at the leaves from the perspective of space, associating each leaf on the tree to a star system separated by imaginary energy from others. The imaginary energy made traversing worlds impossible until eons appeared and changed everyone's perspective.
The future.
To wrap things up, I want to give you a quick look at what each game is doing now and talk about the future. As the oldest sibling, GGZ is quickly approaching its 10th anniversary. The game ended the Reborn storyline at the beginning of this year and announced a new one called, very fittingly, Honkai Gakuen. The events of Honkai Gakuen happened several years in the future and introduced new characters and a new threat. Unfortunately, the game closed its global servers in 2021 due to poor translations and having a minuscule player base.
Never mind, 2021.
Despite that, the game is still very active in China and Japan, having impressive numbers in terms of revenue for a 10-year-old game. Honkai Impact 3 is in the middle of part 1.5, which consists of smaller storylines focusing on characters that didn't have enough development in part 1, such as Sele and Fu Hua. Part 2 is expected to start in February next year. During the Hoyoverse TGS presentation from a few weeks ago, Da Wei revealed that Part 2 will take place in the bubble worlds around Mars and feature a new cast of characters. Part 2 will also be accompanied by a massive improvement to the graphics, an enriched combat experience that adopts the jumping mechanic and the joint attacks from APHO, and many more. The update will bring the game closer in quality to its younger siblings. Genshin just celebrated its 3rd anniversary. Okay, celebrated might be a bit of a stretch here. The game is around the halfway mark of the Teyvat chapter, having released 5 out of the 7 nations of Teyvat. Star Rail, on the other hand, is still in its infancy and recently wrapped up the story on the Lofu. In my opinion, this is a great time to be a fan of the Honkai series and Hoyoverse games in general. Even the older games still receive plenty of love and incredible updates. So if you were ever thinking of jumping into the series, or maybe you already play one of the Honkai games and want to expand your knowledge of the series, this is the best time for you to try out the other games. Except for GGZ, of course, since it's not on global anymore. But hey, if you know Japanese or Chinese, you can still play it.
Could you somehow finesse it with a VPN maybe? I probably wouldn't go all that, but it looked like a fun little game. That's a little disappointing. but alright, the entire history of the Honkai universe. I actually thought that video, it was a great video, by the way, but I thought that was gonna be maybe a little bit more like story lore oriented, and it was. There was a lot of lore to it, but it was more so like a look at like how like the games like released with a little bit of lore to it as well. Like you know, it started at this game GDZ, then Honkaiimpact third, and then this manga came out, and then we got Genshin and Star Rail, and like that kind of history of like, you know, release stuff. Not like in game history. Um, but yeah, very very interesting. I have heard about some of that stuff in prior videos and stuff, and it is cool to, you know, see it come so far, I guess. And like I said, I do want to in the future maybe look into you know, other stuff about the other games and the other games. I mean, I want to even play more of the games as well. Um, so yeah, hopefully maybe those will be future videos in the future. Like I said last time, I keep saying stuff like that, and then it's like the next video is still on this playlist. But just what I'm focusing on right now. But I do have some ideas for more stuff going forward. So yeah, hopefully, and Honkai or Hoyoverse, that doesn't seem like they're done by any stretch of the imagination yet. So hopefully, some more good stuff to react to in the future. Alright, so for this next one, we're still on our Homu Labs, but this is How Did Gricio Grow Up? And this is a Honkaiimpact 3rd theory. And it being in this playlist, perhaps that means that there is some accuracy to this theory. Maybe it's correct. I don't know. I'm not sure if that's exactly what that means or not, but I just know this is, you know, a lore playlist. So maybe not. We'll see what the theory is. We're focusing on Gricio now.
Hoyoverse has been teasing Gricio's return for a long time, and they weren't even subtle about it.
The only
Many
facing
people
the
speculated that she would be back in APHO3 due to her paintings looking eerily similar to the Sky People, and people believing that she is somehow connected to them. And while Gricio's return is connected to the Sky People, it's not what people expected. Gricio
why are you doing this to me? Internet.
is not the creator of the Sky People. Sa is. Or at least the Sky People that the
Sa.
Sugars faced. There is a theory that might suggest that the Sky People from APHO are different, but that's a video for another day. What sparked many discussions in the community is not Gricio's return by itself, but
本当に長い夢だったね。
yeah, she grew up, which is strange because mantis are not supposed to age. Or do they? Well, if you're curious, in this video we will try to answer the question of how did Gricio grow up.
I do remember in the character trailer. I think I saw like the design, like one of the battle suits was her growing up. I was like, what? Interesting.
Also, shout out to Kifune for finding the Chibi Prometheus in the last video. Don't forget, if you want a shout out in my next Honkaiimpact 3rd video, look for the Chibi Prometheus that I hid in this video and leave a comment with the correct timestamp.
I'll try to find it.
First, let's talk about what happened to Gricio in the past 50,000 years. I saw some people confused about how she is still alive, and all I can assume is that someone fell asleep while playing the story, which is, you know, understandable, so allow me to explain. Gricio is one of the 13 flame chasers and bearer of the Signet of Stars. Her powers allow her to see and use an esoteric essence that she refers to as colors. A person can have their unique color just like a fingerprint that Grisio can use to distinguish individuals. Emotions can also be a color. Grisio referred to people's emotional states as colors many times in the past. In fact, when she was still a child, she would be tainted by the colors of the people around her and take on their personalities. This was because kids are usually similar to a blank canvas. They don't have their personalities fully developed yet, so they tend to imitate the people around them.
Hi!
But in Grisio's case, it was a bit more extreme. However, after she grew up, she stopped imitating others since, well, she's an adult, or teenager, old lady? What would you call her? If people call Hua grandma, truthfully speaking, Grisio isn't much younger. So is it Grandma Grisio? Grisio can
Grandma
also use her
GG.
painting skills to manifest the colors she sees through paintings. But these are no mere paintings. For example, when she was young, she made a painting using Kalpas's color, which resulted in a city almost being burned down. Depending on the color that she uses to paint, her paintings can alter and influence the psyche of the individuals around them. While in her workshop, her paintings can come to life and even escape outside, as seen in chapter 41 and ER. Please note that I am not sure if that's just because she was inside a dream or not, so take the last bit of information with a grain of salt. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is all fun and games, Homu, but how is she still alive? Like Kevin, Sue, and Fu Hua, Grisio is a pioneer from the previous era, tasked with implementing one of Matt's projects in the new era. Grisio was in charge of Project Ark, a project dedicated to the search of another habitable planet in the universe. The Ark was filled with genomes from humans, animals, and plants from Earth, setting out in space to rebuild humanity on another planet. Project Ark was a fail-safe plan to rebuild humanity in a place free from the influence of finality. Initially, Cosma was supposed to board the Ark, but Grisio insisted on going in his stead. At the end of the previous era, Grisio boarded the Ark and went into space. There, she slept inside a dormancy pod before returning to Earth. Contrary to popular belief, pioneers like Fu Hua and Grisio weren't active for 50,000 years. They technically lived for 50,000 years, yes, but most of that time was spent sleeping. If we do not count that time towards their age, they are less than 5,000 years old. Hua was active for only 4,300 years. Please note that there are some conflicting dates.
So pretty
Chapter
young.
20 tells us that Fu Hua, Fushi, and Nuwa were active around 4,300 years ago, while some of the early manga imply that it was 4,700 years ago. I would honestly believe the more recent information from the game, and before you ask, Homu, but couldn't they have lived for longer? Hua, yes. Fushi and Nuwa, no. They were normal humans at the end of the day, not mantises. So, if we assume that all pioneers woke up together, and Fushi and Nuwa were still alive, it hasn't been that long since Hua also woke up from her dormancy pod. Grisio should be even younger in that sense because she spent the last 1,500 years sleeping, and even while out with the Ark, it was mentioned that the majority of the time she would be asleep. Grisio returned to Earth around the same time Fu Hua, Fushi, and Nuwa woke up. She spent a little bit of time living with Kevin and Sue, after which she left on a journey across the world for about a year. She eventually stopped at Xianzhou and spent some time with Fu Hua, Fushi, and Nuwa while the Ark was under maintenance. After the Ark was ready to set sail again, Grisio embarked on a new route. To cope with being in space by herself, Grisio separated her grey color, representing loneliness, from herself and named it Marvin. Marvin would take on various forms depending on how Grisio expressed her loneliness through paintings. Marvin is not a real person, it's Grisio's loneliness manifested. Grisio also learned engineering from all the materials left behind by Vil V, and after about 30 years in space, she became became a fully fledged engineer capable of doing the maintenance of the Ark by herself. In the meantime, she also watched a bunch of movies, developing an affinity for a certain franchise that I shall not name. Star Wars, which inspired her to pick up a new fighting style? Yeah, let's call it that. The pen she uses as a lightsaber was a gift from Vil V. While journeying, she stopped on Mars and took a sneak peek at Part 2. After arriving at the edge of the solar system, she found a planet with sentient Honkai beasts, free of Finality's control, and helped them repel their invading forces. Later, she wanted to stop and resupply on a certain dwarf planet, but was attacked and forced into slumber. The planet would later become phosphorus, and the people there are the direct result of Project Ark. At the end of the Starry Voyage Strike Back, we see Sa luring in and preparing to attack Grisio to get their hands on all the genetic materials from the Ark. Sa's main goal was always to rebuild the Venusian civilization, and for that, Project Ark was the perfect catalyst. Fun fact, both Phosphorus and Hesperus are different ways to refer to the planet Venus.
Repeating dream.
After Grisio was forced into slumber, her consciousness was attacked by a darkness. The text is very cryptic as to what that darkness is. It seems to be some sort of power belonging to her attacker that could consume her mind. To protect herself, Grisio created an armor around her consciousness modeled after Otto. Meanwhile, her grey color, Marvin, took on the identity of the real Grisio. I know that Marvin is technically a part of Grisio anyway, but during the long dream, Marvin took on more colors and kinda became its own person. To prevent Grisio from being consumed by the darkness, Marvin created a dream where she could relive all her happy memories. In this case, the time she visited Fu Hua at Mount Taishuan. But as they went on to live in the dream, the colors that Marvin used to make the dream combined with an unknown element and created a dream that kept repeating itself. Inside the dream, they were forced to repeat the same day, just like you are forced to hear me asking you to subscribe and give this video a thumbs up if you enjoyed it. I cannot emphasize how even a small gesture like leaving a thumbs up helps the video and me as a content creator. Thank you. Grisio and Marvin forgot their real identities and assumed the roles of Mr. Knight and Grisio respectively. At some point, Grisio, as Mr. Knight, realized that the dream is repeating the same day and it automatically resets the moment that Marvin, as Grisio, thought about leaving. Not being able to tell anyone, Mr. Knight started guiding Grisio to find a way to break the cycle. After they both realized what's happening, Grisio reabsorbed Marvin and woke up with Fu Hua's help.
How did she? Well, I was just thinking. I was like, did we get to that part yet? Have we discussed about?
One short disclaimer first. If you're expecting a straight answer, well, I don't have one. I can only speculate. This is something that, in my opinion, Hoyoverse should have addressed in the story. That being said, I think that we need to change how we approach things here. Instead of asking how did Grisio grow up, a better question would be how do Mantis powers work? We don't fully understand Mantis powers. In fact, there might not even be a common rule to them. They seem to be different from case to case, fact that we've already observed inside ER multiple times. The notion that hinders us is the idea that Mantis can't age, which was never stated in the game, or any external material, as far as I am aware. Look, I dug as deep as I could, even asked around to see what other people who know more about the lore have to say, and couldn't find a single instance where it's mentioned that Mantis don't age. So, if you know one, please let me know in the comments. If there is, it seems like my cold got to my brain cause I wasn't able to find one. It is stated that Fu Hua can't age, yes, but that's not because she is a mantis. It's because of the type of mantis that she is. Fu Hua fused with Garuda, a phoenix-like Honkai beast that grants her immense regenerative powers. She can regenerate any wound no matter how fatal. Other mantises can't. If you impale a regular mantis in the head, they're gone. Fuhua came back. Garuda's genes are so potent that they heal any damage to genetic material, cells, and tissues. During the Blade of Empyrean manga, we see Hua undergoing the Swara process. This was done because she became a mantis at an age when her brain still had potential for development, so Dr. May needed to find another way to stimulate it. But Swara was used on Hua due to her specific circumstances. As far as we know, other mantis could still undergo physical changes. While yes, the dialogue in the manga low-key implies that mantis don't age, we have plenty of other evidence that suggests that they do, but very slowly. Every time Mobius dies, she is reborn as a younger version of herself and continues aging. As I said, Mantis powers can differ based on circumstances. In ER, during a conversation with Hua, Mei says that because Hua is a Mantis, she lives a lot longer than a normal human. Okay, ignore the fact that Mei told this to Hua, who is the only truly immortal Mantis, maybe besides Mobius, but to be fair, she probably didn't know the circumstances of her Mantis powers. And you might ask, but why are Kevin and Sue the same after 50,000 years? Good question. First, they are not really 50,000 years old. Assuming that all pioneers woke up at the same time, they are only a bit over 4,000 years old. We know for sure that the aging process is halted while sleeping. Otherwise, normal humans like Fushi and Nuwa would have died long ago. My speculation is that they did age, but not that much to observe a notable difference in their appearance. While we do not know their exact age, based on what we know about them, Kevin and Sue should have been in their early to mid-20s when they became a mantis. Let's say that in the 4,000 years that they were active, they aged the
I was
equivalent
gonna say one
of
more
10
year and I'm out of that range. Not even one more year. Like 3 months. Yeah, January.
years a normal human would. Grisio even less, since she was sleeping most of the time. So let's say that it's 5 years for her. From your early 20s to your early 30s, your body doesn't change that much. If you use anime logic, okay? In reality, you will go bald, gain weight, and start to realize
Is that
in
it?
reality,
Next
you
to
will go
Asmongold, is that the Prometheus? Yeah, I think that is. Okay, I was looking a little too hard for that one, and I didn't know it was gonna be right there. But 1420, one blaze it minus the 10 or the 1. Yeah. Oh wait, we can 420. Yeah, the chibi Prometheus.
bald, gain weight, and start to realize that for some strange reason your knees start to hurt every time it rains outside. Unfortunately, in Grisio's case, we lack
You know,
any
I'm always for Asmongold the Bald. For me in my stream, some of my viewers call me Bold. In fact, my Discord name is not Bold because when I express well, see, I have hair. You see this? This is called hair. I'm even gonna. This is called hair. Not baldness, hair.
hints to help us determine her age.
I'm
So
not
I'm gonna
bald.
shoot in the dark here and assume that she was around 12 when she became a mantis. Now, let's add 5 years and she's now 17. Unlike Kevin and Sue, who didn't see many physical changes from their 20s to their 30s, Grisio changed a lot due to her young age, even if she was less active than the rest. And this is not the first time we've seen this kind of growth spurt in a mantis. Remember the Luna event from 6.9? After wandering 10,000 years in the void, Luna, who also had Vishnu's genes like the proper word Teresa, aged considerably. I can't say for sure how much, because by anime logic this can be anywhere between 18 and 40 years old. But just like in Gricio's case, the story doesn't give us any explanation as to why she grew up. To be fair though, in Luna's case it's a lot easier to come up with speculations because of Vishnu, who is a Honkai beast that specializes in constant growth. We've even seen the main story Teresa grow up for a bit in chapter 35 due to Vishnu's powers. So you can make the case that Luna constantly absorbed the energy from the rift and that is what allowed her to grow up. But unfortunately in Gricio's case we know nothing about her Honkai beast. Maybe she is similar to Luna in Teresa and her Honkai beast allows her to grow by constantly absorbing colors. Who knows? Again, I want to repeat that these are my theories. However's never disclosed if mantises do age or not, but gave small hints that imply that they might age, but slowly, or they might not age at all. It's anyone's guess at this point. But I do tend to believe that most of them do age, and in fact during the dream sequence in chapter 41, Kevin mentions that Gricio grew a bit taller since he last saw her, implying that he was expecting her to grow. Even Fuhua mentions in chapter 40 that Gricio should be around the same height as her, even though she was still a kid when she last saw her. This suggests that Fuhua also expected Gricio to be grown by now. I don't think that Gricio growing up is a lore inconsistency or retcon, but I think that Hoyoverse failed to properly convey how Mantis powers work. But hey, this is just a theory. While talking with other lore enthusiasts about this, I saw many interesting theories and explanations that people came up with. So let me know your theory about how Gricio ended up like this in the comments.
My theory is that's actually not Gricio. She one of the paintings. One time she accidentally, when she was painting, she was thinking like, you know, I draw all these paintings. Why not I just draw a stick figure? And then she just made a stick figure. Like this. And it came to life, since it was a Gricio painting, came to life off the page and was like, ooh, and she was like, ah, and it combined with her and it made her older. Or like, the stick figure took her body and it looks older, but that's really stick figure Grease. I don't know. I couldn't think of a joke at first, and then I just went with it. But interesting theories. Yeah, I'm not sure. You know, of course, if Homo Labs, I just say Homo Lab. If Homo Labs doesn't know something about a theory or doesn't know about the lore, I have no chance of comprehending or understanding it. But very interesting. I would, yeah, I kind of, from what I was presented, I kind of think they might Mantis people at age as well, but I don't know. Interesting. It might be one of those things where it's like, you know, you kind of need a lore explanation for it, but it could just be simple. They wanted a new design to release into the gacha name, and they didn't really care about it, which doesn't seem like Homo, or if I say that one more, it doesn't. That wasn't even what I'm trying to say. It doesn't seem like Hoyoverse to like just do that, because I praised them multiple times about all the thought and depth they put into the lore and stuff. And maybe we're going too deep, you know, with you know, with how something they made make sense. Like they just want a new battle suit, then is that it? And they just want something different or change or I don't know. But very interesting theories across the board, and yeah, very nice. I have no idea if this is gonna be the right call or not. But I'm gonna do one more video. I only post one of these a week nowadays. This one's gonna be a little bit longer. It's probably gonna be like well over an hour instead of like just right at an hour, because this one is 31 minutes. This is Honkaiimpact 3rd lore. Who is Vita, the abyss of the sea? Raucous Terminal, another friend of the show, friend of the channel. that's what he's a friend of the show and talking about. But we've seen Raucous videos as well. So yeah.
不过很可惜，这颗星球的真相才刚刚揭开冰山一角。
僕はビタ。歯が唇を優しく噛むビに。舌が優しく歯に当たる。ただよ。
Who is Vita? Iconic and mischievous, Vita imposed herself as a fan favorite over the course of Part 1.5 and Part 2 of Honkaiimpact 3rd story. To old players, she is familiar. To new players, she's unknown. Where did she come from? What happened? What are her goals and ties with the Earth cast? In this video we will summarize everything we know about Vita. Vita's origins. During Part 1.5, Seal and Susanna were thrown into the Sea of Quanta by Misln Shariak while chasing after one of the Grey Serpent remnants. This spatial rift separated both Seal into the Salt Snow Holy City and the country of Iron Sand. A bubble universe in the sea. In there they met Shigur Kira, an ex-Valkyrie of the Snow Wolf Squad and now a soldier and ally of the Sugar's aliens. Vita was met here, a simple, friendly and enthusiastic citizen of the Holy City. In this arc of the story, the Earthians learned that this bubble universe was stabilized by a sage which turned out to be a stigmata. An idea being like Misln Shariak. After a fierce fight between the sage and Seal, the latter inherited the full authority of the Salt Snow Tower as a sage, which was the previous one's plan all along. It all turned out to be pointless as they learned that this universe was bound to destruction by the rules of the abyss of the sea. Saw. The being that Shigur Kira was hunting. Kira then told all of them about the fallen star. A desolate planet that died from a chain explosion under mysterious consequences. And after discussing the situation, suspicion toward the kind Vita appeared and she blew her own cover by knowing how AI work despite being from a universe that don't use modern technology. Vita admitted that she was a rescapee from the fallen star but that it was not her planet either. She was a Venusian. She is very old and is a victim of the Honkai disaster. Of the cocoon of finality. In the second part of the Salt Snow story, we learn that Saz works in a similar way as the cocoon of finality. She uses a system based on rules. To save this world, they have to find a way home and get help from Kiana, who's the Hersher of finality, to be able to anchor the universe and save it from Saz's grasp. They decided to devise a plan and separated the group for multiple tasks. Vita being their guide with her Venusian technology permitting her to predict the possible futures. During the operation, Misln used her own idea body property to construct a path for Susanna to get back to Earth. Susanna managed to reach the other side where Branya, Einstein and Tesla waited for them. The team's hopes were short-lived as the bridge constructed by the now exhausted Misln shattered in an instant and the communication got jammed. The idea and Kira could only watch the poor Vita get erased in front of them. After the tragic death of their Venusian friend at the ends of the omniscient and invisible Saw, the plan to anchor the bubble universe and fight Saw was in shambles. Their only other option was to fight the abyss itself by themselves. Dr. Schrödinger came with an idea on how to be able to fight this cocoon-like entity and save the world. Create a new Herrscher with the SAW system by overloading Honkai energy and creating an imaginary singularity. A Herrscher core. Shigur Kira would become the vessel, and the Herrscher of Sentience had disappeared too under SAW. Misln Shariak tried to locate and fight the abyss by throwing herself into the leaking energy of the bubble universe. But she met her end at the end of the enemy. Prometheus kept information to herself. While the others were fighting SAW, she entered, like the proper world dead Prometheus, World Origin, a special space that only her could reach to hack into the cocoon system. It was known as the will of Honkai on Earth. SAW, being only 10% of the finality power, would permit Prometheus to be able to choose who becomes a Herrscher and give them selected authority, although she would lose herself in this process. Just before she could enter the system, she got stabbed in the back and left to die by Vita, who revealed herself to be SAW, the abyss of the sea. It was revealed by Vita that she indeed was omniscient and all-knowing. She could even read the thoughts of a machine. She knew everything about their plan and started taking them down one by one while isolated. Nevertheless, even an omniscient god has a hard time multitasking and got tricked and led astray for too long by an overload of information from Schrödinger. Kira managed to trick Vita by creating a lie that she herself believed to the very end, deceiving even herself as a perfect idol, permitting the Herrscher of Sentience to trap Vita in her mindscape. Meanwhile, the red seal snatched the blue seal's body and hid her away to become a Herrscher herself. They thought they had won over the abyss, but Vita was far too powerful for them to handle. She dismissed the Herrscher of Sentience, Kira, and deleted all of the Honkai energy in salt snow and iron sand. She was disappointed by the result of her gamble and decided to apply the rules and use the universe's energy to annihilate every living thing aside the red seal.
可惜，在这场豪赌中，我没能看到自己想要的结果。我们彼此都不够走运啊！倘若未能金缩之手，没人能够求得新生。升起吧，世界的第一次日出！
All hope was lost, everyone was dead. Vita even took the red seal's memories from her. It was the end. However, even with her memory manipulation, Vita couldn't stop delete Seal's memories, and the latter finally
the voice of the red seal.
remembered her other half, who came back to life through a miraculous imaginary singularity with a new body, the strongest vessel, a Herrscher core bearing the contradiction of the authority of this universe, life and death. The Herrscher of death born from SAW's system, a Herrscher that isn't the shadow of finality.
We get the cutscene. That was a banger song too, by the way. And I beat drop though.
"竟然还拥有创生的全能，这还真是足够令人惊喜呢。不过，诸位少女啊，倘若未能经我之手，没人能够求得新生。"
Both Seal then decided to face head-on Vita, but they had a plan in mind. With her newfound power, Seal could bring back to life this world. Red Seal went on her own to make preparation while the Herrscher and the God settled things on their side. Kind as always, Seal tried to make Vita stop on her own, but she wouldn't. SAW's rules were absolute. She then trapped Seal in her domain, but the Herrscher proved to be stronger than even the rules of Salt Snow, and Seal managed to break apart Vita with her Wither authority before seemingly taking down the goddess. After the fight, it was revealed that a voice was actually speaking to Vita. It was the true Saw. All along, Vita was only a proxy, a clone of Saw. What Seal fought wasn't the god at her weakest after destroying the bubble universe, but the strongest version of Vita after she gained enough authority from Saw to kill the Hersher. That was Vita's plan all along with the variables that were the Earthians. She managed to trick her creator to give her enough power for her job to be able to free herself from the god's control over her. She was finally free. After being confused by the unreadable Vita, Seal thanked Vita for the pity she had on them because she hadn't eradicated from existence the souls of the world but stored them away so that Seal could actually revive them. After that, Vita revealed that Seal managed to cut the roots of the rules during the fight and explained how and why Saw does what she does. The rules were in fact wishes. Every living thing wishes things. Wishing things will make the bubble universe expand until its destruction. It will always work because Saw understands human nature perfectly. This explosion energy will then gather to Saw to help her expand in the sea like a parasitic plant.
だから砂鉄の国の世界が誕生したんだ。そして砂鉄の国の魂たちは賢者が彼らを蘇生させてくれるからセントソルトスノーの聖者と再会できると信じていました。だから2つの世界が交わって徐々に1つへと融合したんだ。でもその融合こそが世界が滅亡する始まりでもあったのさ。そしてゼーレ、僕は自由だよ。ひな鳥が初めて朝日を目にしたように、稚魚が初めて卵から出たようにね。そして僕が最初にやりたかったことは、この顛末を僕に神聖を与えてくれた人に打ち明けることだ。その人は君だよ、ゼーレ。わかりました。今のビタさんは確かに私たちに悪意を持ってません。でもこれからどうするんですか？私はこれから仲間たちを、この世界のみんなを連れ戻さないといけません。そして全てが元通りに戻ったら自分の家に帰ります。そのために行動するとき、ビタさん、あなたは私の前に立ちはだかるんですか？僕の友人ゼーレ、こう呼ぶことを許してほしい。君がどこに行こうと何をしようと、僕はただ君に感謝して祝福を送ることしかないよ。自分のことは悪人だと自覚しているし、罪滅ぼしなんてしたことがない。社の代理として多くの文明を滅ぼしてきた。
Now that the Salt Snow resume is done, we can dive deeper into Vita's origin and meaning. Saw. It was revealed in the last segment of Salt Snow about what happened to Venus and SA, the original Vita.
Her eyes look really cool. Like the all pink kind of. That's pretty sick.
She was a leader, the director of the top
W
scientist of
design.
Venus, who was called Purusha by them. The end of Purusha and the aftermath were revealed to us, leading to Vita's creation and awakening as her own self.
即将关闭重力模拟装置。哦，稍等一下，我这就把衣服全脱光。所长，请规范您的言行。啊，我可是在认真配合你的检查。
みんな見て、これが26から来た最新映像よ。
これはまさか合成型深淵銃です。いや、もっと上位種かもしれません。私たちが未だかつて対峙したことのない。そう。私たちにはもう半永久的なエネルギーがあるというのに、どうして深淵の蹂躙を防げないんですか？
私たちの技術に進展があると同時に、深淵もより強大な使徒を送り込んでくる。ずっとその繰り返しね。
所長、このまま座して死を待つわけにはいきません。
その通り。深淵が続く限り僕たちも立ち止まってはいられない。ノートン博士、君の霊式システムが必要だ。今すぐ実用化の準備をして。
それは一体。
研究所が今使ってる
海からエネルギーを誘導する方法ではもう深淵の膨張速度に追いつかなくなってる。だからみんなのこの星にいる全ての生命の意識と接続して人類の未来を演算し干渉する必要があるんだ。まさに以前僕たちが議論した話の通り、全ての生命の祈りで僕たちの故郷を救うとしよう。ごめんなさいマーラ。ノートンたちが。
もう言わなくていいわ。
マーラ、
あなたはもう所長じゃない。私がここを接収して今すぐ霊式システムの動作を中止するわ。
それはもうできないよ。あれが深淵がすでに霊式のメイン制御システムの権限を奪ったんだ。僕たちが甘かった。まさか深淵がこのデータ空間を見つけて侵入してくるなんて思わなかったから。もし事前に対策を立てていたら。いや、もういい。もしもの話に意味なんてない。結局のところ僕たちは深淵に投稿する資格すらなかったんだ。ノートもきっとびっくりするよ。自分たちが生きているうちに目にする初めてのデータ生命体がまさか僕らの敵だなんてね。おかしい話だよ。
あなた、こんな状況でもまだ笑えるの？
じゃあどうしろって言うんだ？何ができるって言うんだ？できることはもう全部やった。全資源をつぎ込んだ。全ての心血を、全ての知恵をつぎ込んだんだ。でも僕らの全て、文明丸ごとの勇気と知恵は深淵の前では全く歯が立たなかった。教えてよマーラ。どうすれば深淵から生き延びることができるんだ？そんな方法があるのならどんな対価でも惜しくない。
なら教えるわ。フルショー放棄して宇宙に行って新しい星を探せばいいの。
ダメだ。僕たちが逃げたらこれまでの努力も犠牲も惑星でまだ生き残ってるわずかな人たちと共に灰になって消えてしまう。
でもそれで生き残れる人がいるわ。あなたが欲しかった答えはそれよね。
いや違う。僕らはまだ深淵に負けてない。霊式システムの稼働率のロックを完全解除すれば深淵から生まれたデータ生命体だとしても逃げられやしない。
でもそんなレベルの誘導を受けてしまうと一体海からどれほどの力が湧き出てくると思ってるの？私たちではそれを制御できないのよ。
そうだからこそだよ。海は深淵が唯一制御できないものだ。
狂ってるわ。星の運命で博打をするつもり？
ああ、最高じゃないか。人類はもう引き返せないほどの賭けをしてしまったと、そう思わないかい？
As you could see in this short extract of Saw's past as Dr. Vita from Venus, she was a trusted leader but lost it all after the Abyss. Also known as the Honkai took over the Sol system and countered every solutions they could come up with. She decided to gamble the planet itself and saved everyone as data life in the system after unleashing the sea on the Honkai. She defeated and escaped her enemy at the cost of the world. Saw then toyed with her colleagues while traveling in the solar system in search of a new world to recreate Purusha with the help of the Star Traveler, a gigantic space mecha. She uploaded Mara's consciousness inside a cleaner and created the proxy to manage her work while she was away meditating. Absorbing the sea's energy with her mortal body cost her humanity little by little. She chose to become a machine like God to avoid the mistakes and futilities of the past. Dr. Mara learned from SA in the shadow and how to absorb a world's energy and decided to use her knowledge to awaken the proxy as her own person, giving birth to the clone that would take the name Vita, which was abandoned by Saw. Why did she do that? Maybe out of nostalgia and in the hope of finding an old lost friend from before the apocalypse, although she still hated her and Proxy from being her split image. Mara would later free herself and the cleaners from Saw and become a space pirate. most likely the chief of the Sky People, but this is another subject for another time.
Ugly
Vita
bar.
knew that Saw didn't like her nor treated her as human. She was only a tool because in Saw's eyes, Vita was everything she loathed. She hated herself, she hated the human she was. The proxy was too much like her in reminding her of all that she lost and sacrificed in pursuit of divinity to rebuild Purusha.
さまよった僕の姿、無数の歳月。一人で泣きわめいた僕の声、この道を歩み始めた僕が、決して触れられなかったかも。見ているだけで憎たらしく、聞いているだけで苦痛を感じる。だから僕は彼女が嫌いなんだ。
As time passes and she grew, she became more and more emotionless. There was only two things that Saw still felt in the world. She cherished her 7 Vita on Phosphorus, whose mission was to lead and cultivate the new Purusha, and she feared the cocoon of finality as well as being vigilant against the third and fourth planet, Earth and Mars.
はるかはるか世界の果てで幸せを育む神が目を開けた。神が夢を紡ぐ。すると歴史という物語が生まれた。神が地を開く。すると世界という箱庭が生まれた。林が茂り、水が音を奏でる。魚が光を誘い、スズメが安眠を与える。だが白昼は荒涼とし、黒夜は静寂に包まれた。幾千万、また幾千万の昼夜がやってくる。それは空が世界に大事な宝石を投げ放つ時まで続いた。流れ星が浄土に降臨し、大地に知恵の精霊をもたらす。こうして山に言葉が、川に韻律が生まれた。それが人類の始まりだった。
無垢の楽園に奇跡の星が落ちた。そこから人の歴史が始まった。人は神の従者と共に豊かな国を作った。彼らは暦を作り、空を観測した。彼らは農業を始め、大地を測量した。時は流れ、伝えられていく。この浄土の深くに植えられた人類の歴史は成長して、そして朝礼を迎える。あの日、最悪が空を埋め尽くし、影が大地を覆った。万物に命を与えた水は今回、世界に死を与える。洪水が文明の残光を洗い流し、世界は暗闇に沈み、果てしない静寂の中で神聖を待
つ。闇夜に濃霧が降り注ぎ、名も知れぬ歌をささやく。無名なる夢中を目の見えぬ旅人が歩む。終わりの種はすでに芽吹きを見せている。
This brings us to the second half of part 1.5, Phosphorus, where Fu Hua was sent by with the help of Su to rescue Grisio that crashed there with the Ark a long time ago. Saw was implicitly revealed to be the original blueprint, from which Su became a variant. Fu Hua arrived on Phosphorus as a projection and met the 7 representative in search of help to come back home, but there, she met a starting Honkai disaster. It was revealed that all of this was a plot of a saved, data-life version of the deceased Moriarty, a Sulium clone of Otto who awakened a true persona and that Fu Hua dealt with in the past. He was collected by Vita in her museum. The criminal mastermind tricked and used the Vitas to gain authority and make them remember their forgotten wiped memories of the different samsaras of Saw. Fu Hu also managed to wake up Grisio from the sleeping pod and together went against Moriarty with the help of a projection of Vita that came back from Salt Snow but couldn't manifest fully because of Saw's blacklist. The cunning Vita still managed to give herself the Ark Administrator's permissions by taking advantage of her alliance with Fu Hua and Grisio. It was revealed by Moriarty when he got caught that his goal was to speed up the purge of phosphorus and threw himself in an energy beam to reach Saz to be able to watch an amazing twisted show as a VIP. Saw descended upon phosphorus despite the artifact not being activated by the 7 Vita, who knew about what it would do to their world and memories. The goddess ignored this fact and wanted to purge the world as it became rotten in her eyes and need a new beginning again. Yet another failure in her eyes. The only ones who would survive would be the whitelisted persons, her children, the Vitas. The 7 Vita decided to give their authority by giving up their life to create the rainbow brush to Grisio, much to the sadness of Vita, who lost her only true family in the process, but made her even more ready to deal with Saw.
Interesting.
空にかかった虹を私たちを導いて。
They're making Rainbow Road from Mario Kart. Oh my goodness, actually. What in the world? Her eyes look less cool now. They're more upgrade to creepy. This does seem familiar though. I think this might have been a boss fight. Oh.
After a fierce fight with the abyss of the sea, Fu Hua and Grisio were helpless against the rules of phosphorus, and Saw annihilated them in a similar explosion as Salt Snow, but this time, Vita, who took the Arc Administrator permission, managed to trick Saw's omniscient vision and rewinded time, while helped Jin Fu Hua destroy the Hourglass with the 7 Vitas. It was revealed that the Administrator permission made Vita a whitelisted individual.
これでおあいこだね。母さん、私たちに任せて。みんなの決意、受け取りました。炎上の光を。
Fu Hua then gave her all in a fiery punch in her active Honkai reaction form and made Saw flee for her life as the coward she has always been.
The coward she has always been. Ooh. Oh yeah, I do remember this. Ooh, yeah, that's a very cool Fuha design too.
However, Missiln Shariak, who we thought dead, appeared and blocked the escape path, while leading the finality bullet of Kiana straight to Saw, destroying the main body. It wasn't enough to kill Saw, as it was only a portion of her divine body but would render her useless for a very long time. She was at her weakest, and that is when Vita decided to strike again after her fake death to take all of Saw's authority and eyes of Bodhi for herself. I was created by God and God died because of me. Vita became a goddess surpassing Saw, her creator. Saw died and became an emotionless parasitic plant stuck at the bottom of the sea for all eternity. Vita gained absolute freedom. Only other gods could now stop her.
会話の邪魔をしてすまないね。久しぶり。我が偉大なる創造神？ああ、忘れていたよ。僕たちはさっき会ったばかりだ。ここをありがとう、シャ。でも僕が何者か、何を欲しいと思うかは、すべて僕自身で決めるよ。僕は君よりもずっと上手にできる。当たり前だけどね。残念ながら、自身を海に閉じ込めた君には、永遠に想像できないだろうけど。
それは楽しみだ。
ああ、楽しみだね。期待を胸に死ぬことは、僕たちの神様にとっても、ロマンティックなことじゃないかな。それは君の残りわずかな感情だし。さようなら、虚無。その典型の目は、僕がいただくよ。誰の墓を掘っているのか？ポロス人。ポロス人じゃないよ、マダム。じゃあ、プルシャ人？プルシャ人でもないよ。ポロス人でもプルシャ人でもない。では、誰がここに埋葬されるのか。かつて最後のプルシャ人だったもの。マダム。しかし、今は死んだものだ。神というのも実に面白いね。
Vita achieved all her goals and ascended to godhood through her own deceptions and schemes. Now she is back as an administrator of the Mars quantum computer and is guiding the Dreamseeker AI to return the favor to Kiana, who fell asleep mysteriously after meeting God Senna from Mars. What is she up to? What does she want? Can we trust her? We will see as part 2 unfolds.
Thank you for watching my first lore video. Well, that was a very good one. It's about the who's Vita. That was a really good lore one. And so yeah, today a lot of lore stuff. We had the timeline and the Grecio theory, and then this one. Sorry if I didn't do too much talking myself. Just like always, just kind of taking it all in. But yeah, that was very good. And I got to see, some of the stuff like between like the summary stuff, got to see like the in-game dialogue at times and some like action as well, which was pretty cool. And yeah, we saw the I think that like the end of Saw in that one. And more about Vita as well. Interesting stuff. And next video is Homo Labs video again. This is Who is Saw, and just SA, like Saw. And after that is a Potato Almanac video. We haven't one of those in a while. But for now, though, it is definitely, we're definitely a bit over time. This is going to be a bit long for my typical standard Honkai video. So if you stayed with me through this entire thing, thank you. If you didn't, well, I can't say I didn't understand. I can't understand why, because it's a pretty long one. They usually are pretty long, but no one's really said anything about, man, these are way too long, so I haven't really changed anything. But I guess if you ever, have a critique about it, will make sure always speak your mind, because maybe I can adjust some things as well. I mean, of course, I can't bow to every single person. If someone says that they should be longer, if someone says they should be shorter, like, I can't appease both of those people at the same time. But if there's multiple people saying, like, they should be shorter, then maybe I can make them shorter or make them longer. I don't know. I like the length right now. Pause. But I like these videos. So I am not gonna make any changes unless requested. So yeah. But yeah, only 3 videos deep for this one. We'll get back to more, like, more than that probably next time. Though there is still some longer ones on the horizon. The 2 30-minute ones back to back, kind of, cooked it for the fat to, like, get multiple videos. But I like this video. I thought it was good. Hopefully you did as well, and stay tuned for more Honkai related stuff and to continue this playlist. Now they'll go. Good thing it is at the end because I can't talk anymore. For now though, guys, that is gonna do it for me. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like or dislike, subscribe or don't subscribe. No, it's always up to you. I will see you guys in the next video. You watch with me. Good boy.